I know what the data says, and I know how we coach it, and we don't coach a push play any different than we coach a quarterback sneak play. Yeah, again, the injury data says what it says, and we coach it the exact same, whether somebody's pushing or whether somebody's not pushing. I always want to have players' health first and foremost in our mind, and so you have to trust the doctors and stuff like that on those scenarios, but you always want to do what's best for the players first and foremost.
Nick Sirianni today on the tush push, which is a big topic of conversation, but where does it stand? This is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. He is back to tell us all that happened at the owners' meetings today, how the game might look a little different, and one rule that the Eagles proposed that got passed and how that will change the game a little bit this year, possibly. Let's bring in Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, who joins us right now on the Sports Bash. What's up, Adam?
Mike, yeah, the meetings they're just about done. The owners are actually starting to leave. The way it works is, and this one this year is at the Breakers in West Palm Beach, Florida. So basically what happens is they have their votes, which they had today. We'll get into that for a second. Jeffrey Lurie, by the way, is speaking now, the Eagles owner, separately with the media. But the commissioner now will have his final press conference. That actually ends everything. And then what happens is a lot of owners stay the night and then they leave. Mass exodus of limousines tomorrow morning, but the owners' meetings are done. It's shorter. It used to be 3 days. Now it's really only 2.
All right, Adam. So West Palm is the place, and you've got all the details. Let's get the big one for the Eagles. The tush push play, where does that stand? That one seemed to be one that was going back and forth and gained a lot of steam and momentum over the last 48 hours. Where does it stand today?
Yeah, Mike, it's more than 48. Let me, and we'll get to that because we'll conclude with what you just brought up. But I want to go back to the combine. So I think I was on with you. In fact, I know I was from the combine, and I did a bunch of interviews from there. And what I was told then was there was zero momentum to block the push play for several reasons. And it's what we knew already. League made it clear privately and on the record that there's no injury data that would suggest that it's not a safe play, that it's any worse than any other play. So that is, number one, right? Now, the other one is it really a football play? Mike, there are two things here, okay? So let's move this forward here. Why now? This actually started last week, so give you a little bit of an insight. At every owners' meetings, families, the head coach, GM, owner, team president, a lot of business people for a club, they will travel. This is the one year they get together. The owners' meetings are generally on a warm climate, okay? This one's in Florida. Sometimes it's at the Biltmore in Phoenix. Sometimes it's in California. Dana Point, you might remember many years ago, between Los Angeles and San Diego, which, by the way, was Andy Reid's idea because he's from that area. So anyway, the families will get there. Actually, the meetings start on Sunday. They might get there the Thursday. So what happens is, if there's something big that's going to be voted on, and whether it's controversial like this one, or it's one that has a lot of interest around the league with clubs and coaches and general managers, there's going to be some lobbying that goes on. That's my sense, Mike, is that there was some lobbying last week. Now, whether it was the Packers who are clearly against it, the Rams, Sean McVay, it's been speculated, I guess, that he actually was on the record. We don't have to say that. He actually was on the record saying that he's not exactly for it. So there've been a lot of people on the fence, I could tell you. And then the other thing is, Mike, and let's call it like it is, there's absolutely what we call competitive jealousy. Look, I can't speak for the Packers here. I find this interesting that the Eagles, as you know, beat them twice last season. First game of the season in Brazil, and then in the playoffs. Look at how the Eagles have owned the Rams for a long time here. They may deny this, but there are some people around the league think there's some jealousy with other teams. And the Bills, it's interesting. They run the play, but yet the double standard of saying, well, Sean McDermott, the former Eagles defense coordinator, who's the Bills head coach, Mike. He went on record, though they run it. He has issues with it. It's just really it's been a fascinating discussion, Mike. It's got way bigger. It died for a while. Now it's come to the forefront. But so why do they table it? Because I think you just set this up well. Coaches and front office executives are absolutely split on this thing. It would not have gotten 24 votes. You need 24 out of 32 owners to pass it, to pass something, and that's what they just haven't had enough. It's going to get voted down. I mean, it's going to get knocked out. It's going to happen someday. Whether it's in May, the last time you could vote for it would be on May. It's been tabled to the May meeting. Once there is no other meeting before the season starts. There is one in December, but that you couldn't vote there anyway. There is no voting, and it's completely different. It's a different business one in December. So, Mike, to finish this off, it definitely got a lot of steam. The last, I'm going to say, 4 to 6 days, a little bit more than I probably expected. And then when I heard Sunday that there's going to be a real push for this thing, I was like, wow, that's not what I thought when I was at because I can't tell you everything I was told at the combine, but one high-ranking league official told me this thing is dead, no chance. No one really. There weren't a lot of people passionate about it, but man, here's what I know, Mike. You know this in business. When you get in front of people face to face, things can change.
No doubt about it. And Adam, I honestly think they are pitching this wrong. They're pitching it as a safety issue. To me, you're pitching the competition committee. It's a competitive advantage issue. That's the problem. That's what they should be. That's what they should be pushing, not the injury element where there's no data.
Sure.
You say, hey, you got 3 players pushing a guy forward. My linebacker can't take the nose tackle and push him through the center. That's not allowed.
Correct. And Mike, I'm going to give you another thing that this league official gave me. He said, you know what? You don't know this because you're either at the game but you can't see it, or you're watching on television. He goes, look, when we try to officiate this play, we don't always see this. They can't. It depends where the officials are lined up. They can't always see a couple of people pushing Jalen Hurts. Believe it or not, I found it hard to believe it. They would know more than I would. You have to be lined up correctly if you're an official, by the way. Again, people don't know this, but I do remember that conversation at the Combine. So it is really fascinating. It is really fascinating. And it is a very passionate topic, Mike, way more passionate than I thought with general managers and head coaches. And it's funny, Kevin Stefanski, who the Browns head coach, who, by the way, you fund this in the Philadelphia area, Kevin went on the record a couple months ago. Might have been at the Combine, and I don't know, because the Eagles played the Browns last season in Philly. I remember him distinctly, surprisingly, because he's kind of keeps stuff to the vest. He said no problem. He goes, why should we penalize a team for doing a good job? And how about John Harbaugh, a former Eagles special teams coach, DB's coach, his final year in Philly? He's for it. He's like, hey, it's a good play. They do a good job with it. He had no problem with it. So, again, Mike, if you polled the 31 other teams, I mean, it seems like they're split.
And by the way, you just mentioned Stefanski. He confirmed today that the Eagles and the Browns will have a joint practice for the 3rd time. So we know we have that somewhere down the road as well.
It'll be here, too. It'll be here, this one.
All right, let's get into a couple things from the highlights of Nick Sirianni's media outing. And he spoke about Dallas Goedert. I thought he was somewhat, clear, and he said, look, we want him, but, he was pretty clear that this might not be a chance. There is a possibility he doesn't come back.
Mike, it was fascinating because he starts off well. He's still on the team. So, as soon as it doesn't have to be the Eagles, anytime a coach or a GM is asked a question about a player's future, when he says, well, he's still on the team, you always scratch your head. Like, okay, well, we see where this might be going. So, yeah, obviously he would love him to stay. They're a better team with him. I know the record without Goedert's 8-1, but, folks, you don't aspire to, well, you know what, we're 8-1 without him, so we're good. No, you're not good. You have a lot of backup tight ends now. They've kind of fortified the backup group. It's a much better backup group now. but they don't have a starter if Goedert's moved. So now I would also tell you, Mike, and just people to understand, if Goedert's on the team, I don't do percentages ever. I would just tell you, in our reporting on this one, we know they're trying to move him. They've been trying to move him. They gave him permission to seek a trade. If for some reason he's back, that should not stop them from drafting a tight end early. Why? Because the draft is always about the future. It's not really about this season. You got to look towards the future at that position. With Goedert's injury history, that's part of why they're looking to move him. They really have to solve this issue, just like they did in 2018 when they drafted him, and then Zach Ertz knew over time, he was on borrowed time, was going to have to be moved at some point. But you know what? Zach wasn't traded till Sirianni's first year in 2021.
Yeah, in the middle of at the trade deadline. So he actually started the season here as well. So that could be a possibility. We'll see.
Yep. You never know.
What about Cooper DeJean? A lot of murmurs about what happens with him. Do they move him to the outside? Do they keep him in his spot? What did Nick Sirianni offer on his position?
Yeah, I thought Nick of the recent years was more revealing. You have to read into, if you really want to get information with head coaches at these breakfasts. This one, the NFC breakfast, was today, Tuesday, and the AFC was on Monday. And if you really want to get good information, you really have to listen or watch. And I would say that he talked about Cooper DeJean's versatility. Well, cornerbacks, okay, I'm just using what Vic Fangio says. A nickel is a nickel. A corner is an outside player, okay? Not that Cooper can't do it. I mean, they drafted him to be a corner, and because he was hurt when they got him, and he wasn't ready for the start of the season, they started him at nickel, and he was dynamic. So our reporting on this, a couple of months ago was that they're probably going to keep him a nickel this season. Not definite, but that's where they're leaning. I just found it interesting. He basically said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the exact words in front of me. Just looking at his body language, it sure seems like they want to keep him at nickel. Now, Mike, one thing I would add, let's understand this, we haven't done the draft yet. If they draft a corner, which would be surprising in the first round, yes, they need a cornerback for the future, but if they drafted a corner in the first round, they'd be telling where Cooper DeJean for 2 or 3 years at least will be lining up. So that would tell you that, because you don't need 3 starting outside corners. It doesn't work like that. So that was kind of interesting. I again, based on what Nick said, sure sounds like they're leaning that way, but there's nothing official yet.
All right, we got a couple more minutes here with Adam Caplan on the owners' meeting today. Last year, the 1-year deals. This is something they've done a lot. What did Nick have to say about this year's group?
It was funny because I guess he would know that he's not like a contract expert, but the Eagles have done at least 8 1-year deals, and it was funny. Like, he knew this, and he goes, "Look, we did very well." Zach Bond obviously doesn't get any better than that. They did well with some 1-year deals last year. The best one in maybe one of the best 1-year deals in team history is Zach Bond's 1-year deal, and they've got a bunch of them. We, by the way, on our platform on Inside the Birds, we broke down the offensive ones earlier this week, and tomorrow you'll hear us break down all the defensive ones. And we give you on Patreon, the breakdown of what they actually look like in just the complete breakdown. And by the way, for Patreon tonight, ask Greg Cosell. Greg is back with us live for our Tier 3 members, so you could get that at patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. Looking forward to doing that. Barrett Brooks is with us tomorrow night, by the way, on Patreon.
Nice.
Jeff, we're going for it, man, for the draft. We've got Greg 5 times live on Patreon, so check that out. But to finish this off, Mike, it was one of Sirianni's that I could remember better press conferences, and as we've always said, the more Nick talks, the better it is, because sometimes you don't want to give any information on it. He's very short, but you get him elaborating on stuff, he definitely blabs stuff. It's just kind of comical. Do you remember his first year, Mike, when he didn't know any better? He gave out so much information the first year, then someone got in his ear. I don't know who did, and then he started shutting us down.
Hey, before we roll, real quick, Avery Williams, they brought him in here too. Does he have a bigger role in mind for him? Because a lot of people just say, all right, he's just a return special teams guy.
This surprised me. This is I don't know what happened here. I don't know what. This is another one where the more he talked, the more information he gave out. So Avery Williams is a corner in college at Boise State, right? He got moved to running back with the Falcons. Unfortunately, tore his ACL a couple years ago. He was actually an exceptional punt returner in college. So basically, he's been a coverage special teams player. Like a number 3 running back, but he hasn't carried the ball in a number of years. But Nick basically said, we see a role in offense for him. He wouldn't say what that is, but he kept talking about it. Well, Mike, let's face it. Barkley's the starter. If Dillon's healthy, he should be the 2. Shipley's the 3, but he's got some juice. Well, you don't need 4 running backs. So clearly, other than special teams, Mike, and he didn't really he touched briefly, on the special teams, but he talked about it for a couple of minutes. So to me, Mike, maybe Kevin Patullo and Nick see something, maybe something outside of formation, not a slot receiver, but gadget, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
just something different. It got me thinking so much. I thought this, as you said, Mike, it kind of just a very small role. Not that a change-up running back would be a big role, but I'm so interested in this thing when I go to OTAs, Mike. I'm like, what are we looking at here? I'm curious to see what it looks like.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast as the offseason continues. And we are in draft season. We are in draft month, and we'll have plenty on the draft still to come. All right, Adam, appreciate it, pal.
Thank you.